Hi, I'm John Ford, the author of Peace at Work and the founder of the HR Mediation Academy. And this is my story of how I became a mediator. Honestly, it's not the first time I've wondered about this question, but after writing my book, it surfaced again. As the title of my book suggests, I'm a dreamer of peace. You know, someone who, like John Lennon in his beautiful song Imagine, hopes that he's not the only one. But why was it that my life led me to write a book about peace at work and not something else? Where did the seed of me being a mediator come from? I wondered, was I born a mediator? And regardless, how did I know to grow into being a mediator? In pursuit of those questions, I stumbled upon a well-filed and forgotten memory from when I was about 14 at Kloof High School in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. I was a regular kid at the regular high school for kids like me. I loved sport and played cricket in the summer and rugby in the winter. Life was good. I had friends and was getting along academically as well. However, I still remember the horrible, gut-wrenching feeling in my stomach when I discovered that one of the boys in my grade had fabricated a conflict between me and another boy and made it difficult for us to back down from a fight after school without losing our pride. Fights took place on the far end of the top field. But here's the thing. Even if I did have the beef I was supposed to have, I wouldn't have wanted to fight. I just wasn't a fighter. My template for life's conflict had come from my parents. You see, we preferred to avoid. So on the afternoon of that fateful day, I took the long walk home and had to listen to the jeers of the boys calling down on me with things like coward, chicken you-know-what, and more. I was humiliated and couldn't get to the other side fast enough. I was troubled by an apparent dilemma. On the one hand, I knew I didn't like fighting physically. On the other hand, I knew I didn't like feeling like a coward and all those things the boys called me. I wanted to find another way, so I could stand up for myself without having to be a bully and not roll over like a coward. I didn't tell my parents about the incident. In fact, I told nobody. And life went on. I matriculated and was conscripted into the Air Force. That was brutal and forced me to harden. Then I went to the University of Cape Town to study law. Both represented ways to fight. By then I knew I wanted to help people and be an advocate for justice in my troubled land. And there was such a demand for justice in apartheid South Africa. I moved to Namibia, which at the time was still illegally occupied by South Africa. I specifically went to work at Lawrence & Bone, as they were the only law firm at the time that was doing human rights work. And it was in my practice of law that I started to mediate. So when doing divorces, I'd invite both the husband and wife into my office. We'd work out a deal and I'd file the paperwork. It just seemed sensible. And because of my focus on the workplace, I was called to be the chairperson of mandatory conciliation boards to resolve collective bargaining contract disputes. If you'd asked me if I'd ever mediated, I'd have said no. And then life intervened and I moved to the United States of America. And one fateful evening, walking on the streets of San Francisco, I picked up a catalog for the Learning Annex. There was this class on mediation. I had this deep sense of knowing that this was important to me, that I was going to become a mediator. Getting the training as a mediator was easy. And then I discovered that this was a career path with a challenge. There weren't established mediation firms recruiting new mediators. Making a living wasn't guaranteed. In fact, the most prevalent advice I heard was to keep my day job. Wish I had one, I'd think. Then I'd hear about the importance of getting referrals from my network. Again, not having lived in the US for very long, I barely knew anyone. They also suggested getting on mediation panels at local courts. In the San Francisco Bay Area, there are plenty, but I hadn't taken the bar exam in California, so was not eligible for most. But I persisted and had some lucky breaks, like getting onto the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission mediation panel and the United States Postal Service redress mediation panel. And a mentor, Ron Kelly, himself a prominent non-attorney mediator in the Bay Area, gave me a book called Marketing Your Services by Anthony Putman. I realized that I had to focus, that I couldn't be a general mediator, and that because the workplace was my passion, it was a logical specialization. I also had the good fortune of meeting John Healy, a Mary Parker Follett Award recipient and co-founder of Mediator.com. He and Jim Melamed took me on as an intern and then gave me my first sort of job in the United States of America. I was managing editor at Mediator.com for 11 years. I also joined the Association for Conflict Resolution and our local chapter, the Association for Dispute Resolution of Northern California. I was president for 2 years. I also started to teach negotiation at UC Hastings, mediation at Golden Gate University, and organizational collaboration online through Creighton University. From there, my practice took off. I focused upstream away from the courthouse on internal workplace conflict. And of course, it culminated with the writing of my book, Peace at Work. I've been blessed to have a practice that has been successful. And then, in reflection about why it was that I became a mediator, I wondered, was I born a mediator, and how did I grow into being a mediator? The questions unlocked the answer to the deeper question that I'd asked of myself as a schoolboy and then forgotten. Seems I was unconsciously attending to the dilemma about how to show up as neither a bully nor as a coward had been answered through a profession that requires collaboration. And somehow, almost magically, it now made sense. I could see how in mediation was a path to engage the challenge of fight and flight that we all share. And in the collaborative approach adopted in mediation, found that there was a better way to work to resolution than my knee-jerk avoidance. I still don't know whether I was born a mediator, but I surely did grow into one. And that incident was a watershed moment at which I pivoted towards my path as a mediator. My belief is that each of you have a similar story, even if the details differ, and that our stories matter. They motivate us to carry on. I hope you'll join me in working for peace at work using mediation internally where appropriate, whether as a HR professional or an external workplace mediator. To peace at work.